Hi everyone, good morning, good evening. Uh, Thank you for joining us in the March Tech Talk. And today it's a little different than the usual.
Hi everyone, good morning, good evening. Uh, Hi everyone, good morning, good evening.
All right, so today we have a hacker with us, and they will be doing Hacker 101 webinar with us. So we have Cody from Hacker1 who will be providing us more information on Hacker 101 with the CTF platform. And we also have Zoe Ritman from OWASPIA. So now it's over to you, Zoe and Cody.
Hi
Thanks for
all,
having me.
glad for you.
Really appreciate it.
Glad to have you, Cody. So Cody is in charge of the Hackerone 101 platform, as Vandy has mentioned, and it's an excellent way to learn hacking, practice hacking, and Cody, you can give a more in-depth intro to HackerOne and how the process works of HackerOne CTF.
Sure. Hi. So I'm Cody Brocious. I am head of hacker education with HackerOne, and my baby is really Hacker 101. So if you check out hacker101.com, we've got, I think at this point, about 20 different video lessons on everything from getting started with hacking to mobile app hacking. Um, and then we also have the Hacker 101 CTF that was mentioned, which is a set of um, levels that range from extremely easy to very, very, very difficult to really give you that practical knowledge in hacking and teach you to hack in a real world simulated environment.
Right? Really wonderful. And we'll send the Hacker 101 information after we're done with this. And yeah. So I'm gonna start by going over a few concepts in the OWASP top 10 that will, go obviously be a major factor in the CTF, and parts that Cody will go over specifically as the trainer. And I will use the wonderful Vandana Verma's slide deck, an excellent way of explaining some of the OWASP top 10. And I'm going to try to get my screen shared. One moment. Okay, sorry. A little bit of a delay. Okay. Okay, great. So first of all, to give a little, brief overview of how penetration testing and the application security process just generally works with web applications. So we're going to start with the famous software security throughout the software development lifecycle process. So there's the training, there's the requirements, design, implementation, release, and response. secure design principles, secure the weakest link to really guarantee maximal security, practice defense in depth, fail securely, fault tolerance, the RAID model, as some of you are probably familiar with, that follow the principle of least privilege regarding which accesses are granted to each user, and making sure that each user only has the access rights that they really need to guarantee security best practices in that regard. Compartmentalize, make sure that access is granted to only those users who really need it and will use it to be able to best secure again in that regard. Keep it simple, promote privacy. Be reluctant to trust but verify as always, and use your community resources. Build proper teams, and also don't be afraid to reach out to communities like OWASP and people, vendor neutral, like-minded individuals who have your best interests in mind and who contribute to standards and best practices and are experts. And with that, I'm going to go quickly into, okay, so HTTP conversations. So, and there's a client and server. In this case, the client is the browser, the web app is the server, and trying to monitor and penetration test each of the communications, a little more into the architecture and some of what Cody will be going over specifically in certain parts of the CTF and Hackerone. The Hacker 101 platform will really be able to bring that to life for you guys. And so in the input-based vulnerabilities, I think that's when we'll probably go more into depth, right, Cody? And,
yep, we'll be covering a couple different things there.
Yes, I think SQL injection, XSS, and going over, what that would entail in practice. Again, an amazing opportunity. Thank you again, Cody. And here, so Vandana has used her amazing analogy, which I always like, regarding calling the son's school. Did he break something? In a way. Did you really name your son Robert? Single quote, drop table students. Oh yes, little Bobby Tables, we call him. And that is a pun I will never stop laughing at. Just putting that out there. We've lost this year's students' records. I hope you're happy. Yes, data loss is one of the side effects of injection attacks. I have learned to sanitize your data inputs. It's quite the argument to have. And again, structurally, SQL injection, which Cody will bring to life a little bit. Crosssite scripting. There's the reflected, which is web app victim structurally as we see stored cross-site scripting, multiple victims as we see, and I'm sure, and again, this will be a great opportunity for to really go over in a hands-on way what these vulnerabilities can look like. Broken authentication and management. So authentication is essentially what confirms and verifies that a user is who they say that they are. And there are multiple ways of doing it and having multiple means of authentication. Multi-factor authentication is increasingly important, whether it be biometrics, password, some combination. And I will be sharing these slides at the end, so they'll make more sense after you get the context from the CTF platform itself. And I don't want to go too into each of these because I want to be able to get into the nitty gritty with the hands-on practice, and then they'll make more sense when we distribute the information and the structural diagrams, etc. afterward. So I'll hand it over to you, Cody.
Okay, great. Can you give me permission to present my screen? I don't seem to have the option for it right now, or maybe I do.
Right.
Oh, here we go. Yep, I do.
Got it? Okay, great.
Yep. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to need to do is go to ctf.hacker101.com, and you'll be asked to log in with a HackerOne account, and that will let you into the CTF. Now, to actually get started in this, I am going to actually just walk through a couple flags here. And if you're not familiar with how a CTF works or what it is, CTF is capture the flag, and it's essentially an educational game for security. So you are hacking into a system, finding flags, which are pieces of data that are used to identify that you found and exploited a bug. And the CTFs are essentially, your goal is to get as many flags as you can. And as you can see here, each of the levels in the Hacker 101 CTF has some number of flags that are meant to be found. Also, apologies for my obnoxious cat. You probably can hear him in the background. But each of these levels has some difficulty, and you get points per flag that you find. So for this one, you can get 2 points for each of the 4 flags. Points for the Hacker 101 CTF are interesting because they can give you invitations to private programs on HackerOne. And the short pitch on HackerOne is that it's a platform where you can go and be paid to find bugs. So we have customers from GM to Airbnb to Uber, all of these different companies where you can go and find bugs and be paid for it. And we have a number of public programs and private programs. And this is a good way to earn invitations to those private programs. So I'll actually let you go ahead and sign up on hacker101.com. I need to step away for just one moment, and then I'll be back and do a couple of these flags and get you started. So I'll hand it back to you for just a minute, Zoe.
Okay. And for those of you new to the OWASP webinar style and the InfoSec Girls partnerships, as Vandana has initiated, it will be live, and there will be recordings, so you can go over the content afterward, and you'll be able to, continue to explore Hacker 101. I highly, recommend learning a lot from Cody and his expertise building and continuing to develop the platform. As an excellent resource, and eventually go on and use Burp Suite and Zap Proxy for all of these as you continue to learn and develop, depending where you are in your learning process and in your field. And having these real life CTF practices, there's absolutely no substitute, because they're developed to help you learn and to also be able to find talent and just a lot of practice area. And eventually you'll be able to, explore the art of bug bounty and how you can really make a career off of, essentially getting there before the attacker does, and learning about all these processes.
All right, sorry about that. I am back. Cats were reminding me that I had not fed them breakfast yet. So I will go ahead and screen share. Hopefully everybody is set up with a CTF account, or rather a HackerOne account for the CTF. I'll go ahead and go through a little bit of this. So as I said, each of these has a different difficulty, and we're going to stay on the easier end of things. We're actually going to focus on these first two micro CMS levels. These are basically just a simple content management system. One of them is a little bit more difficult than the other, but we'll get started. We'll not walk through the whole level because I don't want to give too much away. But let's go through this and talk about just how some of this can be done. So I go ahead and I click the go button, and it actually creates an instance just for me of this level. So nobody else is able to see this unless they, of course, have this link. And I'm the only one that's able to go in and see this. So I'll actually go in and check out a few of these pages. So I've got just a testing page, and I could see that I could go in and edit it if I wanted to. And then a test of the actual markdown functionality, same thing there. And I have the ability to create a page. So when I'm actually testing an application, what I want to do is I want to find every bit of functionality that's available to me. So I go through and I have the policy of press every button. So in this case, I'm going to follow through on that, and I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to give it just a test, foobar, some data here. And I'm just going to go ahead and create that page. You can now see that I have that. And of course, I can also go in and edit that if I want to. Everything works as expected. If I go home, I can see that I have a new page, and everything just makes sense there. So really, the functionality that we're talking about here, there are only a few pages. So we have the index, where it shows me a list of pages. I've got the create new page functionality. I can go to a page, and I can go to the edit page, where I can see and edit the contents there. So obviously there can, right? Well, let's see about that. So how does it actually pull up a page for viewing? Well, in the URL, I can see page/1. And if I go to this other one, I see page 2. And my first page is page 6. So obviously there's something potentially between those. You know, I've got a number of different pages here that just aren't there, 3 to 5, in fact. So if I go to page 3, I get a 404 not found. If I go to 4, I get a forbidden. So that's interesting. 5 is also not found. So that stands out to me because this is different than what I've seen on the other ones. I'm seeing a forbidden error, but only on one of these pages that seemingly doesn't exist. So what can we do to find this? Well, if we think back to that map of functionality that we kind of talked about, where we have this index, an ability to view a page, ability to edit a page, 2 of those show us page contents. We know that we can't view the page, we get a forbidden error. But what if we used edit instead? Because if we look at edit, we also have that numerical ID. Now, if we go to 5, of course, we get 404 not found. But if we go to 4, hey, we just found a private page with a secret flag in it. And if I take this flag, if I just copy and paste that into the submit flag dialog here on the CTF main site, it congratulates me for having found that flag. And I can now see that I'm 1 out of 4 complete on this. So to reiterate, essentially what I did was found that there was a gap in the IDs here, page 6 versus page 2. That gave me a range of IDs to try. And I used the edit functionality to get access to that data when the view functionality would not. And that's known as an IDOR bug, or insecure direct object reference. And essentially what that means is you have an ID or some other field that is used to give access to a resource, but there is improper authorization on that. So I shouldn't have been able to access that secure page. It correctly checked for authorization on the view function, but it didn't check for that on the edit function. And that's where you end up seeing really interesting bugs where one area might give proper authorization, but it might not in another. These bugs happen all the time. Literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in bugs every year, possibly even every month at this point on HackerOne, happens solely because of this kind of bug. These are all over the place. They're really easy for a developer to put in place, and they really do teach you a lot about the ways that the applications break down. So that's one simple example, and that's very much in that OAuth top 10 that Zoe was talking about. Now, there's still other ways that this could break. For instance, what happens if there's a non-numeric page ID here? If there's a database behind here, there may be some kind of vulnerability. So let's see. Well, if we put in a single quote, normally for a string that would break the SQL because it would be breaking out of the string prematurely. In this case, it would just be breaking the SQL because it's a numeric ID. And in this case, it doesn't seem to do anything. It's just a 404. So in all likelihood, it's handled properly in the SQL query. Let's see about editing. Well, in this case, it tells you that you're on the right track, or that you're thinking of the right bugs. Because if I put in just a single quote into the edit number, then I actually get a second flag, which I could submit. So essentially, it's rewarding me for thinking about SQL injection. In this case, it doesn't allow you to actually exploit that because that single quote, but it does tell you that you are thinking along the right lines. Now, there are other bugs to find here, but I don't want to reveal too many of the flags on this level. So I'm actually going to go over and talk about something a little bit different here in terms of the SQL injection. Now, in this case, it's a little different. So I actually have a bit of a different version here. This supposedly fixes the security flaws that were in this first version. Well, let's see if that's true. Let's create a new page, and well, something is very different. I have an admin login here. So I'll just try username, password. If I can get in that way. I can't get in that way. Well, might be able to do something like admin password. Nope. Well, instead of guessing at the username and password, let's actually break this down and look at it from a SQL query perspective. So if I put in a single quote, yep, I get a SQL error. Now, at this point, I could run something like SQL map, and that would almost certainly give me exactly what I want. It would give me a shell for the database, everything that I wanted in that regard. The issue is that doing that doesn't really teach you what's actually going on under the surface. It doesn't teach you the actual mechanisms by which it's exploiting that. It doesn't really teach you how to find these things in practice, whereas successfully exploiting it does. So we're going to actually exploit this by hand. And if you look at this error, in fact, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it more easily on the stream. We can see this SQL query here. It's literally just taking my username and putting it into the SQL query, selecting the password from admins where username equals blah. This remainder here is just to deal with some Python weirdness and can just be ignored. But it's literally just requesting whatever password is there where username equals my username that I put in. So I can create a valid query by just doing this. And what that'll do is it'll end the string and then concatenate another empty string. This won't let me in, but it should be valid SQL. And yes, we don't get an error off of that. So what would an actual query look like that would return something valuable? Well, let's see. So we have select password from admins where username equals blah. If I want to make it return a certain password so that I can bypass this, well, what could I do? I could do select password from admins where username equals fake. Okay, that query, in theory, unless there is a username named fake, which I doubt, this should return absolutely nothing, which is great in this case because we can use a little function in SQL, which is the union statement or union clause. What that'll do is it'll join two queries. So this first part of the query, the select password from admins where username equals fake, that's going to return nothing. This second part, the union select password, is going to return one row, which has the value of password. So if we look at this from the perspective of where our input goes, this right here, from just after that first single quote to just before the end, that's the part that we actually need to put into the form. If we enter that, we get this query right here. So in theory, if I put this in as the username and I put in the password, it should let me in because that should be a valid SQL query. Let's try exactly that. Sure enough, that just logged me in. And no, I don't want to save that last pass. Thank you. So now I have logged in successfully, and I can actually see a private page. And sure enough, there's my flag. So it has essentially rewarded me for successfully getting into the system. That's the way I like to think about it, especially when I do CTF designs myself. So that's a little walkthrough of some basic SQL injection. And oftentimes you will find that it really just comes down to thinking about where your input is going. In this case, it's just, obviously I just have blah there, but that's where my input is going to be going into this field. And I need to think about what I am putting in there to create a valid SQL query that accomplishes the goal that I want. In this case, I wanted this SQL query to return nothing and then union in a second query that selected just the password that I control, or in this case, just password. So this specific username did exactly that. And that's the way that I like to think about SQL queries, because it's a powerful way of thinking about it. If you know what the SQL query is, or you can make a good guess as to what it is, because you often won't see the query directly. By making a guess about how the developer would have done it, you can figure out how best to accomplish the goal that you're trying to accomplish as an attacker. So it really comes down to thinking about what the developer did and what you're trying to accomplish, and figuring out where that blend is. So those are some really basic approaches for those two things, the IDOR and SQLi that we talked about. I'm going to show one other quick thing because it's kind of an interesting aside. So if we put in script alert 1, that's valid markdown. Markdown it allows for embedding of arbitrary HTML. And what we do note, though, is that scripts are not allowed here. Now, I built this level, but I actually don't remember what was limited in terms of script functionality. So I'm actually going to solve this right now in front of you. And what I'm looking for here is actually what's called the Crosssite scripting bug. What I'm trying to do is get HTML that I control with JavaScript that I control into the page, which if there's JavaScript executing in the context of that page, I can do anything that a victim can do. So if I get you to go to a URL that I control with this content on the page, and you are, say, logged into the application, like you would be in the next level, I would be able to create new pages as you. I would be able to edit pages as you, anything like that, even if I'm not able to log in myself. So cross-site scripting is a really powerful bug. It's also very prevalent. We see them all the time. So let's figure out how we can do that here. So it looks like they're just stripping out the script tag entirely and just leaving us with an alert. Yep. So it's scrubbing that. It's just replacing it with scrubbed, literally. So let's see if we can get around that. But also, before we do that, we should look at one other thing, which is this title does show up somewhere else, which is the home page. So maybe it'll actually trigger there. Sure enough, it actually replaced the alert that I did with a new alert because I found the right thing, and it actually showed me the flag. And I'll show you why it did that. So my script tag ended up right on the page. And at this point, like I said, I could do anything that a victim could do on here. I could do all of those functions that the application has. And it actually detected that and created an alert for me to do just that. So that is a successful cross-site scripting attack. And this specifically points to one thing that I think is really important, which is an input in one place doesn't necessarily stay in just that one place. This was properly sanitized on the page itself. I couldn't execute any JavaScript there. But, excuse me 1 second. Somebody's at my door. One moment. All right, sorry about that. So what I was saying there was just because the input didn't trigger on the place where I expected it to, which was on that page that I was editing, doesn't mean that it won't trigger elsewhere. Inputs often go into multiple locations. In this case, the view page, the edit page, and the home page. So you want to make sure to look at all of those when you're trying to exploit cross-site scripting. So yeah, that's a basic walkthrough of 3 of the most common vulnerability classes that you'll see today. And I hope that all of that made sense. And what I suggest doing is going through the first 3 levels here. So there is the a little something to get you started level, micro CMS v1, and micro CMS v2. Those 3, none of them require any tool setup. You can do it all through Chrome, just like you were seeing me do. They're all fairly straightforward. They help you along in a lot of different ways. And they really exemplify certain basic characteristics of web security, like IDOR, XSS, SQLi. All of those things are present in those levels, and they provide you a really good foundation. So those are the ones that I suggest starting with. And if you find that those are really easy or you get through them quickly, there are plenty of other levels. As you can see, there are, I think, 11 or 12 levels now on the CTF where you can go in and really try everything that you can think of. There's a little something for everybody in the CTF. So I hope that really helped you get a starting point in your CTF career and in security in general. Obviously, I don't know where everybody's at skill-wise at this point, but I hope that this helps you grow and learn. And I hope this has been a little bit instructive for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cody. And yeah, if you want to, I guess, suggest, next steps of how to get in contact with Cody, and we'll share that information afterward, etc. And Cody, I come to think of it, I'm actually interested, very interested in, your story of how you got into security, etc. I feel like that's always a good one.
Yeah. So my story of how I got into security is actually a little bit odd because I never really wanted to be in security. It was something that I kind of just fell into. So growing up, there was this game on the Sega Genesis called Shadowrun, based on an old pen and paper, like cyberpunk game. And that, you had to hack into computers and all that. And of course, when I was 6 and saw that, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely want to be a hacker when I'm older. And then I completely forgot about it, basically. But that it always just kind of stuck with me in the back of my mind that it was something I wanted to do. So I got into programming and all that fairly young. And I never really thought about becoming a hacker because it didn't seem like a reasonable thing to want to be, until I learned about the game hacking community around the game EverQuest, if you've ever heard about it. Really early, like MMO, kind of inspired like World of Warcraft and things like that. but I grew up fairly poor, and it cost like $10 or $12 a month, which I could not afford. So I got into the game hacking community, but made me fall into security. I started reverse engineering games, and then I ended up hacking the iTunes store because I wanted to be able to buy music on Linux, which it didn't support, still doesn't for that matter. And that kind of got me to become a solid reverse engineer, and then I ended up in security just kind of as an accident through the course of that. So I never really targeted becoming, a security person, and it just kind of happened over the years. So I took the long way around for sure.
So you are an accidental hacker?
Absolutely. Yeah. It really, like, I didn't try to become a hacker. It just kind of happened. And every time I try to get out of it, it just pulls me back in. So, it just kind of happens that way.
I can totally relate to it.
Van, do you want to share your story?
Mine was a forceful one. So I was actually not into security, but was doing something else. And then I was asked to do a security project. And then it went on and on and on. And now it's been years that I'm part of security, and I love it. I can't even think of leaving it as we are running all these women communities. And I'm also part of OWASP Bangalore chapter. This pulls me in so much that I'm so much into security. I just love it. So this Cody story, that's amazing, because people can actually relate to it, that what they were trying to do and then how they landed up into security.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And the whole, gaming component and, going through a building process and then a reversing or breaking process makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And Cody, people might want to actually know about reverse engineering more from you.
Yeah. So reverse engineering is one of those topics that I could talk about for literally hours. But actually, I have a video that I've been referring people to. I call it "How to Become a Full Stack Reverse Engineer in Only 3 Short Years," where from the ground up, I talk about how to actually get into this. If you're interested in learning how computers work on a more fundamental level, learning, becoming a better software engineer, becoming a better security, security tester, security researcher, this is a really good path to do it. It's obviously not, it's not concise by any means. I recommend like 3 years of hard work to do it. But I talk about the things that I think are really important for people to know, not just in terms of here's how you read assembly language or things like that, which is a huge component of reverse engineering, obviously. But more fundamentally than that, I think that it's important to think about it from the perspective of what is the computer really deeply doing. So I talk about things like developing your own compilers, developing your own kernels and operating systems, things like that, so you can really truly understand what's going on underneath. And as I said, like, that's something I could talk about for literally hours. I've been doing this stuff since I was 13, 14, something like that. So I've been doing it for a while now, and it's something that I love. But I definitely recommend checking out that video if you can. I'll see if we can drop a link in the chat, 'cause I am quite proud of it. It's something that's been a long time in coming.
Oh, sure. So you can drop it into the chat, and I will share it with the rest of the audience.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, let me go grab that.
Awesome. Yeah, you are a real inspiration, both of you.
So we want to know your story as well, Zoe.
Oh, so I decided to get into data science as a math nerd and major introvert, business in any form, even if there's quantitative in the title, still not particularly for introverts. But you got to find the right team, etc. So here in the New York City meetup scene, I would do things like go to meetups and get in Kaggle competitions. But I realized that I would start I wouldn't really let them get to coding because I would get into minutia earlier, and this was simultaneous with my exposure to OWASP, and I just realized kind of, it's going to sound bad, but seeing what's wrong and being overly cautious from the start is kind of intuitive to me, and I realize it kind of helps with security.
Great. Oh, yeah. So Cody has also shared the link. I will be putting it into the YouTube live chat link. Thank you,
Cool.
Cody.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm always glad to share this stuff. I despite being a deep introvert myself, I love getting to share this stuff, and I feel very fortunate to have had a lot of people around me who have been willing to share their knowledge with me. So I feel like it's only right for me to do the same for everyone else.
Well, thank you so much. Again, we are very lucky to access your expertise.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much, Cody, for sharing.
Anytime. No, I really appreciate the chance to do this, and I'm super glad that you folks organized this. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Again,
Yeah,
two major inspirations here, and happy International Women's Day to you all.
And thank you so much for all the support that you have been providing it to the women across the world. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you.